Hello, my name is Amit Basole. I'm Associate Professor of Economics at Azim Premji University. This year's Union Budget, about to be presented by the Honorable Finance Minister on coming Tuesday, comes at a very critical juncture for the Indian economy, which has been battered by nearly 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic at this point. This is the second budget to be presented during the pandemic period. Before I come to the budget expectations, I would like to set the context of what we know about the impacts of the pandemic on the economy and in particular on the poorer and vulnerable sections of Indian society. Nationally representative surveys such as the Consumer Pyramids Household Survey of the Center for Monitoring the Indian Economy, which has been closely followed during the pandemic, have shown that even if the aggregate employment has returned, in aggregate terms, employment has returned to the pre-pandemic level, incomes still remain depressed. Household incomes, as per these data, have been remaining stagnant at around 80% of the pre-COVID level for several months now. This evidence is also supported by many smaller surveys conducted by various civil society organizations and academics and researchers, including us at Azim Premji University, which has also pointed to the fact that the urban poor, as well as poorer sections of rural society, have suffered tremendously during the last 2 years in the form of job losses, informalization of those who had salaried work. Many had to fall back to agriculture to survive. And as a result of all of these shocks, have had to borrow significant amounts of money simply to finance their daily needs or to pawn gold, other assets, and so forth. They've had to reduce their food intake. In many surveys, we have seen increase in levels of food insecurity and so forth. So all of this points to a picture of continued distress in the economy. And the question arises, what can be done? I will offer 3 specific suggestions here, which have to do with offering income support to the bottom end. First, the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana, which was announced during the first lockdown and has since extended, which offers grains in addition to the usual quota through the PDS, should be kept going. It is due to expire currently in March 2022, but it should be extended at least to another 6 months or a year. It offers vital food security. Second, the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, providing 100 days of guaranteed work to every rural household, has again provided a very important social safety net in the rural areas and to returning urban migrant workers. We have evidence from the secondary data, from the MNREGA official data, as well as surveys, that there is huge unmet demand, meaning people would like to work in the program but are not able to work due to lack of finances. So the budget again should go back to an increased allocation for MNREGA. The last year's budget had an allocation of 73,000 crores, which was not adequate and was seen as not adequate even then. This year's budget should take it up at a minimum to about 1.1 lakh crores, which is what the government has already spent this year on the program in its revised estimates. But ideally, it could go up even up to 1.5 lakh crores or so. Indeed, the calculations done by various civil society groups that show that if you were to actually offer 100 days of work to everyone who wanted it, the budget might go in excess of 2 lakh crores. So that's the second point. And the third is there is still time to carry out another national level cash transfer program. We have only had one in India, which was in 2020, the 1,500 rupees transferred to Jan Dhan accounts. A lot more can be done. Indeed, other countries have done many higher levels of cash transfers. So either through Jan Dhan or because of lack of coverage of Jan Dhan, we can think of other ways of extending this net. A second round of cash transfer to the extent of, let's say, the PM Kisan amount, which is about 6,000 rupees a year, can be considered in the current budget. All of this will ensure that consumption, which still remains depressed, will come up in the months to come and will then drive private investment, which has remained weak. So the government right now is a very critical player in getting a broad-based recovery started. The question, of course, comes up, can we afford all of this extra spending? What about the fiscal deficit? The fiscal deficit, of course, has gone up during the pandemic year, and it has gone up across the world for every government. It is true that India's debt to GDP ratio as well as fiscal deficit are currently at very high levels, much higher than in the past we would have expected or wanted to see. Nevertheless, this is an unprecedented situation. Worrying about the fiscal deficit now and cutting back on expenditures risks prolonging the economic slowdown or risks making the recovery limited only to the better off sections of society. So if we don't want the long shadow of the pandemic, if we don't want long-term impacts on debt, on consumption, on food security, on education, and so forth, then spending has to be increased now. It will be possible to reduce this later when economic growth picks up. In sum, I think in the current budget, my expectation would be to see some serious commitment towards shoring up income at the bottom end, where people have suffered tremendously in the past 2 years. Thank you.